All right, what's going on, guys? Trev back again, here to bring you another video. This one's going to be doing our first Q&A video for this week for Fear the Walking Dead Season 5. In this one, I want to start things off giving our thoughts. Will you guys still watch Fear if the season finale death is Alicia? And possible spoiler warning, as per usual, if you are not cut up for Fear the Walking Dead. So I definitely wanted to go ahead and continue and do a video on this one since we're seeing some interesting things kind of formulate up here. And we have a pretty cool picture which was shared with me, which is a picture of Alicia with a whole bunch of blue bonnets. And you guys remember from the last year or so with what they did with Nick and Madison and kind of how they used the blue bonnets with that. This picture, I think, was posted June 21st this year, which was the night of the release of the mid-season finale, so the night when we found out that Alicia was okay or was going to be okay according to Grace for the radiation. But a lot of people are thinking, as I am, that maybe what they'll do is Grace will end up being okay and she actually will end up surviving, and Alicia will end up getting sick and actually dying by the end of the season. And I hope that's not what we see at all, but if that is what they do and they kind of twist things around there, where we all thought that originally Grace was going to be eventually was going to die here, and then she ends up actually surviving, and she has a relationship with Morgan and becomes sort of like Morgan's girlfriend or possibly wife in the future if she survives on long term. And then on the opposite side of things, when we were told Alicia's okay, she ends up not being okay, and then we see her killed off at the end of this year. So let me know what you guys think about this one. I'm really not sure about this one and how this would affect the show, but I want to hear from you guys because we got to see an episode 10, an episode that did not feature Alicia at all. She was not in that episode of Fear whatsoever, and we are used to pretty much seeing her every episode of Fear at this point, since of course she's one of the final, she's the last of the Clarks from the beginning of the series. So leave your comments below and I'll put a poll up here. If they do in fact kill her off by the end of the season, and that's what we see to wrap up the final episode of Fear the Walking Dead Season 5, are you interested in coming back to watch Season 6? Will you watch Season 6 or will you rage quit? And we have a few different kind of comments here sort of about that, which I think are kind of fun. Lucille 2 or Lucille 11 says, when Travis was killed, I said I was going to quit watching. When they killed Nick, I said I was going to quit watching. When they killed Madison, I said I was done, and I always came back and caught up for Alicia. I will be done, though, 100%, if they kill her off. Luciana just sucks and is annoying as hell. So, because then you'd be down to just Luciana, Strand, and Daniel. And again, we don't know for any of those survivors how long they would stay in the series for if Alicia is killed off at the end of Season 5, and then Season 5 sort of ends up being kind of her season. So this one for me, all right, so I want to hear your guys' thoughts. That's open for you. You can leave your comments below. You can vote in that poll I have set up for you, whether or not you will continue to watch Fear if they go that route, and if the Season 5 finale is that major character death and it is actually Alicia. So for me, I've kind of been thinking about this one for a little bit because we've had time since the mid-season finale where they kind of played with that idea where she maybe got sick but then she didn't. And then again, like I said, they might come back to that later from what we're seeing. We'll see if they do. I hope not, but who knows? They might. So for me, it's kind of like, man, if they do kill Alicia off at the end of the season, I will be really, really sad because she is the last surviving. I view it as like a lead character from the beginning of the series. Now, other people can say, well, Daniel's the lead and so Strand, but Daniel hasn't been there hardly at all. There's certain seasons where he's just in like a couple episodes or something, or he just comes in here and there. And in the future, I don't know if that would change. I would be kind of surprised if we started seeing Ruben Blades show up every episode of a season, like 16 episodes, and he's in like 14 of them or 13 of them. I kind of don't expect to see that because we're not used to that, and I don't know if you would want to commit that much time to it. Also, you don't know how the cast would feel if they did finally kill her off too. It'd kind of be like, oh man, we don't know if Coleman Domingo would want to continue. Of course, he's been cast in Candyman, so that's pretty cool. Good for him, right? And he's got other projects he's working on, highly talented and everything like that, so he can do other stuff. He's directed some episodes and he's done all that. So it'd be getting pretty close to kind of like the end to where the characters that are still alive from the beginning are not really, just Daniel and Strand. If they did this, then and they weren't even really, a member of the main family that started the show off. It's sort of like in the original Walking Dead, where the Grimes family is totally pretty much wiped out. Now you have Judith and you have RJ, But the original Grimes family with Carl, Rick, and Lori, you know, totally gone. But Fear would be doing it way earlier because that's season 5 versus The Walking Dead. Finally, Rick left in season 9 and Carl was season 8. So it certainly would be really early to do that. And, you know, I'd have to question, like, I don't know if I want to keep watching if they do that. But I guess as I watched episode 10, I thought to myself, well, you still have Morgan, you have Dwight, who they've crossed over now too, and you never know for the future what other things they might do with regards to Fear being influenced by having characters from or crossing over between the series, because they might not be done with crossovers. We might see more in the future, you know, maybe in a couple years down the road or something anyway, if Fear continues on past 6 and gets a 7 or something. But this is really what I'm saying, is I guess I won't totally rage quit 100% and stop watching the series if they do that, but I will be so heavily saddened and disappointed by that decision because I do not think it would be good for the series at all. It's pretty much safe to say, you know, as long as Fear the Walking Dead is on, she should be alive. You should not kill her off. It's sort of like Daryl, right? She's kind of the female Daryl for Fear, right? In the original Walking Dead series, all the women love to watch Daryl. They love to watch Norman Reedus. They tune in just to watch him, right? For Fear the Walking Dead, it's the opposite. A lot of guys just watch Fear because that's what it is. So it's a good question if people would still come back and watch if they finally do that and she's gone and then maybe Strand leaves the next year or something. And then Daniel just comes and goes every once in a while for a couple episodes a year or something. Man, it will be like the takeover of Fear the Walking Dead into the Morgan and Friends show would be totally complete. If they do this at the end of this year and then next year they continue and you lose another 1 or 2, you know, you've pretty much finished, I would say, that transitionary soft reboot that started at the beginning of season 4 from what Fear the Walking Dead was. And you've completely finished that transition into Morgan's show and Morgan and Friends type of series at that point. So that for those reasons, I really hope that this is not what they do. I mean, I know sometimes they put in big character deaths to shock the audience and get people talking about it and trying to get, you know, people to pay attention and tell their friends about, oh, did you see what they did on Fear? This kind of thing, word of mouth and everything. The Walking Dead has a lot of shock value in it. Right, even up until the end of the comic book series, boom, it's over. Okay, shock value. You know, everyone's like, "What? It's over? I thought we were going to go for another 5 or 10 years. What the hell?" Right? So The Walking Dead has a lot of stuff like that in it, and that would be a big one for Fear. But if they do it, I think it would be a colossal mistake, and it might cause the show to be canceled after season 6 because, you know, at least half that audience, if they've been watching from the beginning, if that's what they do, and then you're down to just Morgan and the others, which is a new rebooted version of Fear, they might as well change the name and end the series and call it something else because it's not the integrity of the series has not been kept up to what it originally started as. It would just feel like they just totally, you know, completely changed direction and decided to reboot it with different, you know, the Walking Dead crossover characters. And also, it kind of saddens me that it feels like each time they cross over a Walking Dead character that we lose, like, you know, a whole bunch from the original. Like Morgan crosses over, but the cost for Morgan crossing over was Madison's killed and Nick is killed. It's like, oh man, it's like, is it worth the cost? I mean, I guess if you get Morgan, it's kind of worth it, but at the same time, if you cross Dwight over and then you kill Alicia, is it worth it? And I'd have to say no, it's probably not worth it. Dwight is great and everything to have. Austin Amelia was great, but not if you have to kill off, you know, the last of the Clark family in order to make it happen. So let's hope this isn't where they go with this. And, you know, if they do it, I think it'll be the most hated series, you know, pretty much ever. If that's what we see, I think nobody, you know, it'll probably kill the show, in my opinion, or get as close to it as possible, right? As much as they can do. Marilyn SS says, on Talking Dead, it was mentioned this season was going to be shocking. Yeah, you know, again, they have said in interviews that near the end of the season, like, it's going to change a lot, right? So with that said, it could be possible Madison might show up. Maybe the ladder in the tree was a clue, plus during Talking Dead, after Madison was supposedly killed off, there was only Madison, Alicia, and Strand on the couch. There was no showrunners, which was just odd to me. So, man, you know, it would be great. Like, that would be, you know, awesome if it was the other way, where not only did they not kill any of the original Fear survivors, but they actually re-added one. They brought Madison back and re-added her to the roster. I just don't see it happening. I don't think it's something that's possible. I don't think it's feasible. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope that somehow, you know, in terms of the practicality of it, they can make that work. but I just simply don't see it happening. I really don't. And we have Connected VG who said, fun fact, the music that played when Dwight and John found the tree was the same music when Madison found the Blue Bonnets. Also, Coleman recently posted a photo with Blue Bonnets as well. So there's another one there too, right? So, man. I don't know. It's like, don't do it, man. Don't even think about it. Michael Dilly says, whenever Trev uploads a Fear video, there's a 100% chance he will mention Z Nation. So, Michael is probably right. I probably do mention Z Nation all the time, but it's not just me, because I watched this episode with my wife, and she's like, is this Z Nation? And, so I asked her, I said, did you hear me say that? Because sometimes you can hear me, making videos and stuff, but she did it. She actually has watched Z Nation with me quite a few times. And so she knows the feel of Z Nation, and we were watching Fear the Walking Dead. She asked me if it was Z Nation, because she knows that Z Nation is over, right? Because I told her that it's finished, it's over. And she actually she misinterpreted Fear for Z Nation. So it's not just me. So, yes, anyone who's watched Z Nation will feel like there's got to be some kind of an influence on Fear from Z Nation. It's just so similar in a lot of ways. The vibe, the feel, the intros, everything. It definitely reminds people, not just me, of Z Nation. There's no question about it. Brandon Neer says, Trev Q&A, what's the worst Walking Dead episode? New video request. So I've done that one for Brandon years ago. I think still takes the cake as the worst episode of The Walking Dead ever. I think still is the worst. I mean, it's hard to compare, though, for Fear. You'd have to look through Fear and say, okay, what are the worst episodes ever done for Fear? And could you say that some of them are worse than Still? There's probably a Fear episode here or there that's worse than Still. There probably is. I can't think about it because, I just remember Still as being like this episode where The Walking Dead was so hot in season 5. It was just, everybody loved The Walking Dead season 5. And then this episode for Still came out and everyone was like, oh my God, this is so bad. So, that's probably why Still stands out to me as still the worst episode ever. Robert Blakemore says, Trev, I think the economic theory of Madison's departure is very valid. So he agrees that he thinks because they brought Morgan on, their talent costs for budget got too high, so they had to kill Madison off. They had no choice because it was too expensive to have Lenny James on, as well as have the whole original cast of Fear on. And I don't know how much they would have had to pay someone like Lenny James to come on to Fear and to do Fear. I'm happy he agreed to do it because a lot of the others probably would have said no, and same with Dwight, Austin Emilio as well too. But yeah, maybe it is valid. I mean, when it comes down to it, everything comes down to money. So if they had to kill off Madison to get Morgan, it's kind of like, I mean, I guess it's kind of worth it if you have to trade, right? I guess so. It just would have been so cool to see both together for at least a season or at least a little while. They didn't even do a single scene with Morgan and Madison. Isn't that true? I don't think they did even one where the two of them even met each other, shaked hands, whatever. They never did it, right? And so that's crazy to think that they didn't even have a single scene between the new lead of Fear and the old one, because Madison was the lead up until her final episode, definitely she was. NBA Strictly Zero says, Trev, what's your top 5 Walking Dead characters ever? Just wondering. Man, that is such a tough question. You guys can leave your comments below. Who are your favorite Walking Dead characters ever? I'd have to think really hard of a top 5. I mean, you got to have Rick in there. You got to have Daryl in there. Morgan probably should be in there because now he's leading Fear too. And then the other two, man, I don't know. You'd have to think of like all-time favorites. Like for me, maybe Shane, maybe Negan. For Fear, probably Alicia's my favorite character they've had in Fear. Of all their original characters, especially now that she's out-survived Madison and Travis and the others. Travis was my favorite early on, but he didn't survive long enough to really have that impact. Shane had a big impact, even though he was only there for a little while in the original Walking Dead series. So it's really hard to say, man. Then there's always fun characters like Merle that were really fun to see for a while. Michael Rooker was great. So it's tough, man, to say, like, okay, after all these years, who are just your 5 favorites? There's a quick rundown list of who you'd go with, like I said. Maybe Rick, Daryl, Morgan, Alicia, and then who would be the other one? Negan, I guess, something like that. Like, because you probably should have one from Fear in there, you know what I mean? But it's like Maggie was in The Walking Dead 2 and Michonne 2, so it's kind of hard to pick if you're only allowed to pick 5. Would they all be Walking Dead and no Fear at all? maybe you should have one fear for representation for fear, right? 4B, or sorry, S4B Suarez says, I love the older versions or the older seasons of Fear. I don't want to see them drive around like UPS workers giving speeches all the time. Give me some real plot to work with. And okay, we got two more. Thomas Sims says, Madison returns, finds out Nick is dead, and shoots Charlie in the face, reclaims her daughter, right? So that's a fun one. Would she kill Charlie if she found out that she killed Nick? Oh yeah, there would be nothing that would stop her from killing Charlie. I don't care if she's a little girl or whatever. We saw Hammer Time with Troy, so if Madison returned and she found out that Nick was dead and Charlie shot her, yeah, Madison, no one would be able to hold Madison back. She would Hammer Time Charlie for sure. That sounds brutal because Charlie's so young. And the last one is from the Man Hammer AR-15, who says, Trev, Fear the Walking Dead is equivalent to 52 orangutans simultaneously having explosive diarrhea. So there we go. We'll balance it out to add one, troll comment in there too. You gotta mix it up, right? You gotta balance, right? Balance. It's all about balance. Anyway, that's it for this video, guys. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments below. If you liked it, as per usual, thumb it up below, share it, favorite it, and subscribe at the bottom left if you're new. Vote in the poll so I can see where you guys are at with this one. That's it for this one. See you guys again soon for another. As always, this is Trev, and I'm saying peace later, guys. See you soon.